Good morning.
Good morning.
It's good to be in the presence of the Lord. I mean, just to be with two or more gathered in my name, I am present. You can feel up the sweet presence anytime you gather with other people. Sometimes you get chill bumps all over you. It's just great to be in the presence of the Lord. Great to be having church this morning. Glad to be here. Some of y'all, I think most of y'all met me even when I was here last time. My name's Gary. I'm from Freedom Worship Center Church in Bluffville. And I'm going to be preaching today. Before we get started, there's been a lot of, I want to reflect on something. I actually had one message prepared for today. Just in the last 2 or 3 days, I just felt something completely different. My spirit was led in a different direction. And I like to start everything off every time by saying, quoting Romans 16:1. For I'm not ashamed of the gospel of Jesus Christ, for it is the power of God unto salvation to everyone that believeth, to the Jew first and to the Greek also. I've been watching the news here a lot in the last week, maybe 2 weeks, and I see a lot of suffering going on. I've been seeing police shootings. I've been seeing these anti-police protests going on. I've seen wars happening in the Middle East. There was just a new round of terrorist attacks in France. And there's other terrorist attacks going on abroad in other places. There were floods, I think about a week ago, it might have been 2 weeks ago. There were floods going on in West Virginia. There's political, I just noticed this night before last, there's political upheaval going on in Turkey and South Sudan. I saw them just started a civil war. I can't turn on the news without seeing where somebody's shooting somebody's going to war with somebody. I mean, it's just upheaval. I'll just call it what it is. It's upheaval. And suffering is going on everywhere in the world. Nothing affects us like suffering does. Suffering gets our attention. Suffering forces us to look at ourselves. Forces us to look to one another. Forces us to ask deeper questions about ourselves, about life in general. But if we're wise, suffering also forces us to turn to God. We turn to God even if it's just to express that we're discontent. Even if it's just to express our frustration, we turn to God. And the questions we should be asking ourselves is to who we turn to during times of suffering. What are we to do? Well, the answer is obvious. We are to pray. When Jesus went to the Garden of Gethsemane, he went there for one reason. He went there to pray. Why do you sleep? He asked the disciples as they lie asleep while Jesus was praying. Are we spiritually sleeping in our own time, suffering? With all this suffering going on in the world, is the church sleeping? Are we not ministering to people? See, and this is really good. Prayer prepares the soul for suffering. Prayer, let me repeat that. Prayer prepares your soul for suffering. Because we're going to suffer. It's not an if, it's a when. Whether it's the suffering that's going on in the world or suffering that's going on in our personal lives, through health problems, through maybe financial crisis. I've known people that have worked at a factory for several years. J.P. Stevens is an example. Come into work one day and had the place padlocked. And the particular individual lost their home not long after that. These things happen. Suffering is going to touch every one of us. It's not an if, it's a when. It's when it's going to happen. But as believers, when we see these things in the news, the things that are happening, this is not news to us, really. It shouldn't be. What we're seeing is a confirmation. We're seeing a confirmation of everything Jesus told us about. And that's what I'm going to teach today from Matthew chapter 24. This was the direction I was being felt led. And when we go into Matthew chapter 24, in the very first verse, it says, Jesus went out and departed from the temple, and his disciples came to him for shew him the building of the temple. That simply means that he came out of the temple and was out and he was standing outside the temple building itself. And the temple it's referring to is the temple in Jerusalem. And Jesus said unto them, see ye not all things? Verily I say unto you, there shall not be left here one stone upon another that shall not be thrown down. In other words, Jesus is telling his disciples that the temple in Jerusalem will be torn down, which did happen sometime around the year 70 AD. And in verse 3 it says, and Jesus sat upon the Mount of Olives, and the disciples came unto him privately, that means one at a time, saying, tell us, when shall these things be? And what shall be the sign of thy coming and the end of the world? And Jesus said unto them, take heed that no man deceive you. In other words, do not be deceived by any man. For many shall come in my name, saying, I am Christ, and shall deceive many. And the word Christ right there means, and in the Greek, the word Christ simply means anointed one, anointed of God. When he said many will come and say, I am the Christ, there's going to be many people that will come and say, I am the anointed one of God. You know, we see this in other religions. We see that in Islam. We see it in Mormonism. When people say, I come as the anointed messenger of God. And these false religions. And many, how many millions of people, maybe even billions, follow these false religions like Islam. Jesus' prediction came true centuries ago. It's still coming true every day right there. And then in verse 6 it says, and ye shall hear wars and rumors of wars. See that ye not be troubled, for all things must come to pass, but the end is not yet. In other words, when we turn on our news, we see that Turkey is in upheaval, South Sudan, Africa is in upheaval. We see that the Middle East is in upheaval. Somebody's firing rockets into Israel again, Jerusalem. He says, don't be troubled. So when you see these things, they have to come to pass, but the end is not yet. When he's talking about the end, he's talking about the age of grace. We're in the age of grace right now. The age of grace does not end until the tribulation begins. And in verse 7 it says, for nation shall rise against nation, and kingdom against kingdom. And there shall be famines and pestilence and earthquakes in diverse places. Folks, did we just not see, like I said, I don't know if it was last week or the week before last, the floods that devastated West Virginia? Did we not see about a month ago floods that were devastating Texas? When we turn on the news, it seems like there's always an earthquake happening somewhere. There's earthquakes happening in Indonesia. There was an earthquake happening, I believe it was in Argentina about a month ago. And we're seeing these earthquakes happening in all these diverse places. Well, hasn't that always gone on? Yes, but they're not happening with the frequency that they're happening now. They're happening more often than they used to. Even the scientists are baffled. Some people are blaming this on global warming. We know it's not global warming. We know, we'll see that in verse 8, that these are the beginnings of sorrows. We know that when we see these earthquakes picking up, we see these storms picking up, this is the birthplace, the beginning of sorrows. When I was just talking about the suffering going on in the world, would you not agree that suffering brings sorrow? That we need to pray about it? And then in verse 9 it says, then shall they deliver you up to the afflicted, and shall kill you, and ye shall be hated of all nations for my name's sake. Do we not see right now, when we turn on the news, do we not see people coming against Christians? We see the gay movement coming against Christians. We see the Islamic groups coming against Christians. We see that they're wanting to ban Christian speech. I don't know if any of y'all ever watched the 700 Club. Here about 2 months ago, they had a story on there where a pastor in Seattle had on their church sign, Muhammad cannot save you. Buddha cannot save you, only Jesus can save you, and the town made him take that down because it was promoting hate speech. So we're seeing this go on right now. We're seeing this transform. Remember, I said these are confirmations. This isn't news, this is confirmation. We were told right here in Matthew chapter 24, this is what's going to happen. This is what's coming forth. We got reason to shout. I'll get to that in a moment.